Hello everyone and welcome to Brickcats. Today I'm reviewing a model that I should have done before now, the TIE Defender designed by Jerac and distributed by Brickvault. As always, please consider subscribing, leaving a like and a comment, or supporting what I do in any other way you see fit. Each subscription, comment, and like helps others find my channel and I greatly appreciate it. If you're interested in building this or any other Brickvault model, you can take 15% off the cost of your order by using my discount code CATS15. I do receive a small amount of compensation when you use my code, and this is an amazing way to support the channel while taking the bite out of the price of the instructions. I recently finished Star Wars Rebels, and of course this ship is central to the plot of the last season, but my first exposure to this ship was in the 1994 LucasArts TIE Fighter computer game. I'm sure those of us who battled the traitorous Admiral Zarin and became the Emperor's Reach fondly remembered the ridiculously overpowered TIE Defender cutting through the later missions of the game with ease. Nostalgia aside, the Defender in Rebels was also great to see, although the plot revolved less around its battle capabilities and more on the threat of mass production against the Alliance's cause. We do see a number of instances in which the ship completely outclasses the Alliance's starfighters, illustrating the consequences if the Spectres don't come through. Without any substitutions, I was getting 4 stores and $173 without shipping and tax, or $209 with shipping and tax. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Bricklink's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks and I always purchase the instructions. I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. Jerac's TIE Defender measures about 9 inches front to back, 10.5 inches wide, and 8.5 inches from top to bottom. The cockpit uses the 3x3x2 round corner bricks to create the ball shape, and this is obviously quite different from the versions that we've seen on the other Jerac TIE fighters given the connection point towards the rear. Everything is very nicely rounded off on the cockpit ball. For the top dome, I've used the printed version. The TIE Striker dish is the one that's specified, and that would also work, as would a plain light bluish gray dish. The 2 droid arms holding it on towards the back are a little bit noticeable, but this element is much more expensive in light bluish gray and much less common. The cockpit is quite crowded, but it does fit a pilot minifigure. I elected to use some trans red grill tiles for the interior instead of the specified instrument panels, just because the instrument panels were a little expensive and I'm running kind of low on them at the moment. But either one works, or you can just leave them out, as the cockpit is pretty hard to see into given that it's mostly black. And this is the way I found easiest to get a figure in here. You have to remove quite a bit of the ball's structure. They aren't specified, but I think round quarter tiles would go really nicely on the studs of the 3x2 round bricks right here. And I'll show you in just a second. They aren't specified, but I think round quarter tiles would be really nice here as they kind of round out the edges when seen through the cockpit windscreen. So you can definitely see the edges through the windscreen there. So if you put black round quarter tiles, you won't see those. Moving around to the back of the fighter. The engine module is built as a subassembly, and I really like how Jerac used the lipstick pieces for the engine glow, and then this little tiled off or grill tiled off red section in the back here. This section in particular is really impressive. If I take this off, you can see that this whole subassembly is wedged in between 3 hollow studs, one here, here, and here, and those are also the engine connection points. So it was really cool to me to see how everything fit in very tightly, admittedly, but it does fit. The shape of the wing pylons is achieved with hinge bricks. You can see the hinge right here. While it's pretty simple to do, it is really impressive how these sections come together as nicely as they do. I mentioned the engine subassembly earlier. You can see that there's a lot of detail contained in the pylon itself to give it kind of the roundish profile with slopes. We have this little section here, which is cam inaccurate on both sides. Unfortunately, these tiles, I can't remember what slope this is, maybe it's a slope 30, doesn't come with a solid top, so a little bit of visual detail there that isn't on the Canon models that I know of, but no way around it. I do like the shape though. So overall, the pylons are really nice. Conveniently, the Defender sits very nicely for my camera here, just based on the wing shape. And now I'm going to move to the central part of the pylons here, and this is where I start to get a little bit confused as to which variant of the Defender this model is based on. In Rebels, which is the version you're probably most familiar with, there is a small black section of solar collector right here. In fairness, I think this would be rather difficult to achieve, but I don't know, probably not impossible. These little fins, however, are only visible in the Legends version of the Defender that appeared in the TIE Fighter computer game. I'm not sure if that's Legends anymore, I think it is. However, that version of the Defender had a more rectangular central pylon section, and it's covered in solar collectors completely, so there wasn't as much hardware visible in the wing gaps here. That discussion aside, this section looks excellent, with a lot of other small details built in, as well as the concussion missile launchers. A little bit difficult to see because they're dark bluish gray there. I think in Rebels, the missiles appeared to be visible in the launchers before they were fired, and there's no sub-build or piece specified to represent those, but you could easily do that if you wanted to. Moving to the wings themselves, they're pretty much perfectly shaped as far as I can tell, and they're held in place very securely with toe ball connections on top, and there's a clip and bar connection underneath here. All 6 wing segments have the 12L bar with hollow stud, representing some of the cam and hardware along the inner edge. You can see that right here. The wings and their cross pieces are angled nicely and included on both the top surface and, well, I guess this is like the outer surface, and then the inner surface up here. I do find this area in particular a little distracting just because of the studs. It's one of the only places where there's studs visible, I guess also here, but there's nothing you can do about that without making it really look blocky. I thought that maybe you could fit like a 2x2 curved slope here, but I did try that, but it just makes it look worse. So you could tile this off with a black tile if you wanted to, but it's not too bad, just the way it is. The wingtip armament is in a 4-2 arrangement with these 4 cannons on the bottom representing the standard blasters, and I think the upper 2 cannons are supposed to represent the ion cannons. And this is a Legends arrangement, again harking back to the TIE Fighter computer game. Also in Legends in the game, the missile launchers were these structures underneath the chin here. It wouldn't be difficult to add 2 more hinge plates and some lightsaber pieces to make all 6 of these the same, which would be closer to the Rebels arrangement, if you wanted to. As you've seen throughout this video, the fighter sits perfectly fine on its wings. There's no stand included, and the stand would be a little awkward to design and build, I think. The center of gravity seems to be right about here, so that's kind of an unfortunate place to try and make a connection. This model is also fairly heavy, just because it's got, well, basically 33% more wing than the normal 2-wing TIE Fighter. So in the absence of a really solid connection method, a stand might be more risk than it's worth. So overall, this is an incredible looking model, and like I said, I should have built this one a lot sooner. Let me know what you think about which version of the Defender this is supposed to be, or if you know that I'm overlooking a detail that makes this completely obvious, that is entirely possible as well. Jerac's TIE Defender requires 124 elements and 1,365 pieces. The hinge plate 1x4 swivel base and the hinge plate 1x4 swivel plate, parts 2429 and 2430 in light bluish gray, are listed as separate elements in the parts list. I removed those and added the much more common combined part number 2429C01, and these are located right here. The specified top dish is a 6x6 inverted no studs with bar handle and the Star Wars TIE Striker hatch pattern, part 18675 PB08, which as you might expect came with the TIE Striker set from the Rogue One wave. This is less expensive than part 18675 PB01, but it's certainly not cheap. I think they average around $4 or $5 on Bricklink. At this point I have a couple of the TIE Advanced dishes, and that's why I used one, but if you were looking to save the most money, I would go with the plain light bluish gray dish with bar handle, part 18675. Since this is an older model, there are a number of elements that have newer, more common variations, and I'm just going to put them up on the screen here rather than go through them. But these are old molds that were more common at the time that this model was designed, which just have newer equivalents. And by and large, I use the newer equivalents, and the model doesn't seem to suffer for it. The tile 1x2 with groove with avionics Star Wars copper, red, and silver pattern, part 3069 BPS2, is very expensive these days. Since the interior of the TIE Defender seems to have a lot of red instrumentation in Rebels, I use trans-red grill tiles, part 2412B. Trans-red 1x2 tiles, part 3069B, would also work just fine. There are 4 tile round 2x2 with bottom stud holder and black Star Wars TIE Fighter pattern, part 14769 PB025 specified, but you only really need 3 if you want the printed tile at all. There was one hidden, you probably saw it earlier underneath the top dish here. You could change all 4 of them for the plain light bluish gray 2x2 round tiles, part 14769. For pricing purposes, I did leave the 3 printed tiles in for the wing pylon there. Lastly, you could consider ordering the following elements directly from LEGO's Pick-a-Brick service, as they will likely be less expensive than on Bricklink, and you'll probably reduce your store count. Pick-a-Brick orders over $35 total qualify for free shipping, and if you spend more than $14 in the bestseller and standard categories, all the handling fees are waived. This TIE Defender's instructions contain 92 steps, although the final number is larger because some of the subassemblies aren't numbered in sequence with those 92. Since these instructions are about 5 years old, they're in an older format. There's no outline for the parts you add in a given step, and each step is set against a sand blue or dark tan grid background. For visibility, this is fine, but highlighting which pieces to add would have been nice. And in previous versions of the various TIE Fighters from Brick Vault, you haven't gotten a fading version of the instructions in which the previous pieces that you've added are faded out in a different color, but that is not included with this TIE Defender for some reason. The instructions are also in portrait mode, which is not the best for computer monitors, but it might work okay for iPads or other tablets. I definitely had some viewing angle issues. In particular, it was not possible for me to differentiate between the brick modified 1x1 with studs on 4 sides and the brick modified 1x1 with studs on 2 sides adjacent when constructing the pylons. Additionally, when building the wings, it's not possible to tell that some of those pieces are the brick modified 1x1 with studs on sides opposite, instead of the brick modified 1x1 with stud on side. An explanatory note would have been really helpful, or fixing the little window that shows you which pieces are going on so you can clearly see the stud on the opposite side. This is a challenging build overall, and it does rely on illegal techniques to create a stable wing structure. In particular, getting these 4x4 plates with 2x2 open centers in place is physically difficult. I believe the tolerances are so tight that the printed logo on top of the stud affects the fit. Similarly, getting the brick modified 1x1 with studs on all sides in place is very difficult, especially when you're doing the second round of them, as the 4x4 with 2x2 open center plate is locked in place by then. I had to use a lot of force to get these to snap in. Connecting the 1x4 plates in steps 52 and 62 is similarly difficult. These sit right on top of the studs underneath, and the printed logo is definitely causing some strain here. I mentioned this earlier a little bit, but the rear of the fighter is quite difficult to get on for me, as again you're looking at very tight tolerances getting this section into place. There is a 1x2 connection in the center, and you're also wedging it in between the 3 hollow studs. So again, this is really impressive how it fits, and I think it's actually legal, but it's definitely tight. In step 88, it's basically not possible to get these cheese slopes, you can barely see the 2 there, in place without removing other pieces first, so I think they should have been added earlier in the build. When constructing the forward part of the wings, this big triangle right here, I believe there's a typo for this triangle construction. It should be x3 instead of x2, but really it could be x6 because it's the same construction for both halves of all 3 wing sections. So while this is certainly a challenging build, I think that with a few refinements to the instructions it would go a lot smoother, as you wouldn't have to wrestle with both a challenging connection while at the same time worrying if you used the wrong piece in some cases, and then you probably wouldn't have to go back and fix things later on. I do think that the instructions, especially compared to what we're used to in 2023, take away a little bit from the experience overall, but the techniques and the overall cleverness to create this challenging shape are really impressive, and I think most builders will appreciate that. The TIE Defender is a very solid model, with the only obvious weak spots being the cannons up front here. You can pick this up and swoosh it around to pretty much any degree you like. The wings are very solid, and I'll demonstrate later, but you can lift it up by the wings. When you hold it, you kind of hold it like this. You want to be a little bit careful with this engine assembly because it can come loose. And the other things that can come loose are these lipstick pieces, just because they're that softer plastic and they're mounted inside the hollow stud there. So as long as you avoid that, I mean, I am shaking this pretty hard, and nothing's happening. You see I did bump the engine section here, so that came loose. But as long as you can avoid that, this does go back in fairly easily. So not too big of a deal there. And then if your thumb bumps these lipstick pieces again, here I will demonstrate that you can lift this up by a wing. I would not do this too much, but it is possible. And this model, like I said earlier, is pretty hefty, so that's not a small feat of strength there. Again, while the model doesn't have a stand included, it sits just fine on its wings. It is a little tippy. What I mean by that is if I kind of tap that, it will fall forward. I don't want to let it, so why not? Okay, so it's pretty solid. It'll not fall apart if it tips forward. The angle is such that the cannons don't bump on the surface of my table here. And there shouldn't be anything else flying off or anything like that. Another nice way to store this is just kind of like that. And if you changed out the ion cannons for blasters, I mean, I guess you really could put it on the front if you wanted to. I'm not sure why. And then a couple of times during the video, I've set this on each an individual wing section like that, and that's pretty stable as well. So, overall, very stable, very strong, really good job on that. Jerac's TIE Defender, while it's a few years old at this point, is a highly impressive build that instantly catches the eye on display. It's very sturdy and will stand up to casual handling without any issues. While certainly a higher piece count than most of the TIEs you're likely considering, the Defender is not only reasonably priced, but also contains a ton of useful pieces for future Star Wars builds. I think I was able to fill out about 80% of my parts list with things I already had from previous builds. Without any substitutions, again, I was getting 4 stores and $173 without shipping and tax, or about $209 with shipping and tax. With my substitutions, but again sticking with Bricklink only, I got 4 stores and $138 without shipping and tax, and that's $172 with shipping and tax. A lot of the savings came from changing out that top dome to the plain light bluish gray version. Buying the 18 elements I recommended from Pick-a-Brick gave me a Pick-a-Brick total of $40. That did not include shipping and handling because those were waived, but it does include tax. And then the remaining elements from Bricklink were running me 3 stores and $89 without shipping and tax, or about $113 with shipping and tax, for a total of $153. And that's $56 less than what we started with. And finally, buying as much as I could from Pick-a-Brick using the Brick Hunter extension. My full Pick-a-Brick cost was $133. Again, no shipping and handling, but does include tax. From Bricklink, the remaining 8 elements I was able to get from 2 stores, totaling $13 without shipping and tax, or $26 with shipping and tax. The grand total was $159, which was $50 less than what we started with. Instructions for Jerac's TIE Defender cost $17.99 from BrickVault's web store. There will be a link to where you can buy those in the description below, and remember you can use the discount code CATS15 for 15% off if you haven't already used it. Thanks as always for watching my review of Jerac's TIE Defender. If you've built this model, you have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave your thoughts below in the comments. Remember to subscribe, leave the video a like or a comment, and follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. Each subscription, comment, and like helps increase the channel's visibility, and again, I greatly appreciate your support. I hope to see you back next time.